Welcome. You are listening to the Louie Minor Show. I'm your host, Bell County Commissioner Louie Minor. Today is January 14th, 2024. We have a lot to cover, so let's get started. Before we get started with the agenda and everything, Monday is going to be Martin Luther King Jr. Day. It's a federal holiday, state holiday, and county holiday. But I want to read real quick the proclamation that was put out by President Biden commemorating this day. And I'll read it real quick in its entirety. Today we reflect on the life and legacy of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and recommit to honoring his moral vision on the path to redeeming the soul of our nation. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was born into America when racial segregation was the law of the land. He had every reason to believe that history had already been written and division would be our nation's destiny. But Dr. King rejected that outcome. He heard scriptures command to do justice, love, mercy, and walk humbly. He clung to the Declaration of Independence's promise of equality for all people. Dr. King's mission was a moral one. From bridges and ballot boxes to pulpits, protests, and courthouses, he courageously stood for the sacred idea that embodies the soul of our nation. We are all created equal in the image of God and deserve to be treated equally throughout our lives. He vocalized the idea on an August day in 1963 when he told our nation about his dream. He saw that idea realized for many Americans with the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, ushering in a new era of greater equality, opportunity in our country. That work is not yet finished. It is the task of our time to take up Dr. King's mantle and make his dream a reality. The battle for the soul of our nation is a constant struggle between hope and fear, kindness and cruelty, justice and injustice. There are still those who would seek to thwart progress and roll back our rights as Americans. But Dr. King and countless crusaders across the span of American history teach us that each generation must answer the call to perfect our union. We must heed the whispers of our better angels. We must see each other as our neighbors and not our enemies. We must do our best to seek a life of hope, truth, and light, because nothing is guaranteed about our democracy. We must fight to keep, defend, and protect it. On this day, we must recommit ourselves to being guided by Dr. King's light and by the charge of the Scripture. Let us never grow weary in doing what is right. For if we do not give up, we will reap our harvest in time. We must continue Dr. King's march forward by choosing democracy over autocracy and a beloved community over chaos. We must be believers, doers, and most of all, dreamers. We must be repairers of the breach and remember that the power to redeem the soul of America lies in all of us, we the people. Therefore, I, Joseph R. Biden Jr., President of the United States of America, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the Constitution and the laws of the United States, do hereby proclaim Monday, January 15th, 2024, as Martin Luther King Jr. federal holiday. I encourage all Americans to observe this day with appropriate civic, community, and service projects in honor of Dr. King, and to visit mlkday.gov to find Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service projects across the country. Well, thank you, President Biden, for that proclamation. And I'll come back around to Martin Luther King. So let's get to the agenda real quick. For January 16th, 2024, that's Tuesday, obviously because Monday is Martin Luther King Day. We have invocation, Pledge of Allegiance, consent agenda items, consider approval of the minutes of the January 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Commissioners Court, personnel and budget amendments, claims, accounts payable, payroll, restitution, jury pay. 4, consider appointing Robert Fleming of Troy to the Killeen Temple Metropolitan Planning Organization and designating an alternate to the Killeen Temple Metropolitan Planning Organization, we commonly refer to as K-Tempo. And then 5, the county engineer consider and approve final plat of Longview Estates, phase number 3, being a 5.0653 acre, 2 lots, 1 block subdivision located in City of Temple's ETJ, Bell County, Precinct 3. And then B, consider and approve the final plat of Sunset Acres replat number 1, being a 2.457 acre, 2 lot, 1 block subdivision located within Bell County, Precinct 3. And that is everything for the agenda. Then we have our workshop that will immediately follow that. We have reports, updates from various county offices and departments, capital improvement projects. We have the jail expansion, museum archives building, Killeen Annex, and then CIP projects. Then we have discussed road projects to include in the community project grant funding. And then that is, let me see, that's still in the morning. And then we'll go into closed session and discuss deployment of security personnel or devices in the county buildings and facility. And then also in closed session, we'll be going over deliberations concerning personnel matters associated with the appointment of the Veteran Service Officer. Then in, let's see, January 16th, that afternoon, discuss justice of the peace precinct redistricting, and then discuss game room regulation with David Baucom from the county attorney's office. And that is everything on the agenda for Tuesday for the Commissioners Court, both the regular agenda and the workshop agenda items. There's a lot of things that I want to cover, but before we get too far into some of the other things, first thing is, we're going through our first polar vortex since Winter Storm Uri from 2021 that crippled Texas, and you can tell everyone is concerned. Dripping your faucets, stocking up on food. I believe HEB everyone, there's pictures online of people, the shelves empty because everyone ran and stocked up on stuff, getting, topping off gas in your car, truck, making sure that if something happens and we're without power, water for 5 days, like last time, that you can survive, that you'll be prepared. Because last time we were not prepared, and the state has been a little bit more proactive, and you see them out doing stuff to the highways when last time they didn't do anything. But so far, so good. At least in the county, I haven't heard of anything, nothing yet of significance. And but we'll see. This is just barely getting into the first day of freezing temperatures. I think today's high is 31, and then so yeah, next couple of days it'll be good and cold here in the county. So we'll kind of switch gears, and I don't know. I just feel like I need to kind of explain my political philosophy on things, and listening to all the candidates talk, because it's primary season. You have all these candidates going to events, and I'm watching them, listening, and it reminds me why I ran. What am I running for? What am I representing? My political philosophy. And there's a couple of presidents that I really have studied, and their philosophy kind of coincides with mine. Probably the number one is LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, president from Texas, and then FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, president during World War II. World War II, and Johnson was the Vietnam era. But I have a speech, a little clip that I want to play for you. It's called the Four Freedoms. That's what it's typically referred to as, the four freedoms that FDR spoke January 6, 1941 in front of Congress. And I'll play for you real quick.
The first is freedom of speech and expression everywhere in the world. The second is freedom of every person to worship God in his own way everywhere in the world. The third is freedom from want, which translated into world terms means economic understandings which will secure to every nation a healthy, peacetime life for its inhabitants everywhere in the world. The fourth is freedom from fear, which translated into world terms means a worldwide reduction of armaments to such a point and in such a thorough fashion that no nation will be in a position to commit an act of physical aggression against any neighbor anywhere in the world. This nation has placed its destiny in the hands and heads and hearts of its millions of free men and women, and its faith in freedom under the guidance of God. Freedom means the supremacy of human rights everywhere. Our support goes to those who struggle to gain those rights and keep them. Our strength is our unity of purpose to that high concept. There can be no end save victory.
So to put that in context, that was during the World War II era. And if if you didn't catch it, I'll say the four freedoms that was referenced in his speech. Freedom of speech, but he wasn't just saying for the United States. He was saying everywhere in the world. Freedom of worship of his or her own God, of her choosing, his or her choosing, anywhere in the world. And the freedom from want, anywhere in the world. And finally, freedom of fear. And specifically, what he was talking about there was nations committing war on each other. But you can definitely look that into a lot of things. You know, fear of going hungry, fear of being attacked for who you are. So that really sticks with me. It's very basic, but it definitely goes in line with everything the United States stands for. Now, the other little clip that I had pulled out that I wanted to play for you is from President Johnson and his vision of what was called the Great Society, what he wanted to do. Now, a lot of historians and scholars have said that the Vietnam War derailed his plan for the Great Society, but a lot of programs that still exist today that was started by the Great Society are still here and thriving. A lot of things for the arts and humanities, PBS, pre-K. A lot of these things were started during the Great Society. So let's play that little clip real quick for you.
The Great Society asked not how much, but how good. Not only how to create wealth, but how to use it. Not only how fast we're going, but where we're headed. It proposes as the first test for a nation the quality of its people. This kind of society will not flower spontaneously from swelling riches and surging power. It will not be the gift of government or the creation of presidents. It will require of every American for many generations both faith in the destination and the fortitude to make the journey. And like freedom itself, it will always be challenge and not fulfillment. And tonight, we accept that challenge. I propose that we begin a program in education to ensure every American child the fullest development of his mind and skills. I propose that we begin a massive attack on crippling and killing diseases. I propose that we launch a national effort to make the American city a better and a more stimulating place to live. I propose that we increase the beauty of America and end the poisoning of our rivers and the air that we breathe. I propose that we carry out a new program to develop regions of our country that are now suffering from distress and depression. I propose that we make new efforts to control and prevent crime and delinquency. I propose that we eliminate every remaining obstacle to the right and the opportunity to vote. I propose that we honor and support the achievements of thought and the creations of art. I propose that we make an all-out campaign against waste and inefficiency. Our basic task is threefold. First, to keep our economy growing. To open for all Americans the opportunity that is now enjoyed by most Americans, and to improve the quality of life for all. In the next 6 weeks, I will submit special messages with detailed proposals for national action in each of these areas.
So if you come visit me in my office in Belton, I have 3 pictures hanging on my wall of civil rights leaders throughout the time. One of them, obviously, is Martin Luther King. The other 2, people may or may not know about them. One picture, someone had told me, they're like, "Oh, is that your grandparents?" And I was like, "No, that's not my grandparents." But it's Dolores Huerta and Cesar Chavez. And they did a lot to advance workers' rights, farmers' rights. A lot of their activism centered around Hispanics and working out on farms in the fields and improving wages and working conditions and living conditions for those Mexicans, Hispanics that worked those back in the 60s, 50s, and 60s. They helped create the United Farm Workers Union, and definitely, like I said, did a lot to advance the labor movement for Hispanics. And then the last one that I have hanging on my wall is Harvey Milk. A lot of people don't know who Harvey Milk was, but he was the first openly gay elected official in the United States. And he was a board supervisor from San Francisco. And he was assassinated in office. But yeah, so that's kind of, playing those 2 speeches from Franklin Roosevelt and from Lyndon Johnson, and then reading that proclamation from President Biden. It just made me think of, why do people run for office? And for me, it's to, what kind of government do you want? What kind of government should we have? I think government should be there to remove barriers that are facing people, to improve the quality of life, to make sure that everyone is living the American dream. With your 4 freedoms, the freedom of speech, worship, one, and fear. And and a great society. And even if you heard that part of the speech, even back then they were talking about clean water, clean air. There wasn't a term for it, really, not back then used, but improving our environment, making sure that we're good stewards of our natural resources, and that the beauty that we grew up with and remember is still there for our children and grandchildren. So that's why I got in government. That's why I got into politics, because I want to improve quality of life in the area that I live, and remove barriers, making sure that people have equal access to everything. There's another podcast that I listen to, and it's put on by the National Association of Counties, and they interview county officials from all over the country. And one of their questions that they always ask someone that's on the show is, what is good government to you? And my response to that question, if I was ever asked, what is good government to you? It's to provide for your citizens, provide the resources to your citizens where your citizens are, where the community is. It does no good to have all your resources and all these opportunities available if it's not getting to the people. So good government is having the resources needed for the community where the community is. And I think that's pretty simple. You go extrapolate that into a lot of things. But to me, that's what good government is. Responsive to the needs of the people, and meeting the people where they're at to meet those needs. So yeah, I just wanted to like I said, get that. For some reason that was just sticking in my head, listening to all these candidates talk, why they're running for government, why they're running for office. And it just made me kind of do some reflection on why I got into it, why I've been doing this for over 10 years, not in office, but being in politics. What have we done here locally in politics to make the lives of the people better, the quality of life? So, but yeah, like I said, now you know a little bit more about myself and my political philosophy, and we can work forward together on that. So now we'll just talk about some national news real quick and some local. Tomorrow is the Iowa caucus. That's the first primary / caucus of the presidential election cycle. Now, President Trump on the Republican side is projected from everything I'm reading and hearing to win, but the weather, the weather. You think it's cold here. The weather for tomorrow, for the caucus, and for a caucus, you have to be there in the room. So the weather for tomorrow for Des Moines, Iowa, is projected the high. This is the high to be 0 and the low to be -10, with winds blowing roughly 14 miles an hour. That's cold. That's cold. This is cold for me. I think it's the high right now is, the high today is supposed to be 31, but it's definitely like in the 20s for now. Let me check real quick what the weather is. 30 degrees right now as of this recording, and that's cold, very cold. But yeah, so there'll be voting in that tomorrow. And so, yeah, interesting to see what will happen there. And I mean, then here locally, it was just put out in the paper that two board members for Killeen ISD School District will not run for re-election. So there'll be two open seats on Killeen ISD School Board. It actually opens up next week is filing. So we'll have filing for city elections on the 17th. It opens up on the 17th. So for Killeen, water boards, water districts, school boards, I believe that's it. Oh, and then a new one that just was created this legislative session was the tax appraisal district. They're going to have 3 seats on that, and that'll be coming up too. So next week we'll start to see how the city council races and everything will start sizing up, and we already know that city council mayor's race in Killeen, it'll probably get pretty heated. There's every city council meeting here lately has been pretty interesting to say the least. So between the primaries, runoff elections, city council races, presidential, I mean, this is going to be a very busy year, election year, consequential year, a big year for Texas, to see what the future is going to look like as we move forward. And we still don't know how these new laws that the state of Texas, how they're going to affect the landscape, the political landscape, the abortion ban in the state of Texas, how that's going to play at the Senate level. I think the biggest name on the ticket for this election cycle locally, statewide, obviously going to be Ted Cruz. And, we'll see who will be the Democrat running against him. But so far, I believe the front runner is Colin Allred. At least he's raised the most money since the last time I checked. And obviously the presidential. And then we have the new law that Texas just passed, where they can arrest you if they think you're illegal. If they presume you entered the U.S. illegally, which I have brown skin. So, I mean, I don't know what is the evidence, what is the prima facie evidence of a crime has been committed on that one. But the governor of Texas got into I guess he said something that wasn't a good look for Texas. So let me play the clip real quick.
We are deploying every tool and strategy that we possibly can. The only thing that we're not doing is we're not shooting people who come across the border because, of course, the Biden administration would charge us with murder.
Is Governor Abbott really arguing that the only reason that he hasn't ordered Texas law enforcement to not fire upon desperate migrants, and the only reason that they're not being murdered in cold blood by Texas law enforcement is because they fear they might be prosecuted by the Biden administration?
Governor Abbott chose to use those words. Like you said, he chose to say that the state of Texas is not shooting migrants because the state of Texas would then be arrested for murder in that case. But here's how the governor defended his own words.
I was asked to point out where the line is drawn about what would be illegal, and I pointed out something that is obviously illegal.
So there's our governor playing cleanup with people's lives. They're fleeing horrible conditions. Obviously, if they're traveling thousands and thousands of miles by foot to only get here and have someone that is so heartless that he's joking about shooting and killing people, men, women, and children at the border that's seeking asylum, refuge. But we'll continue to organize and fight and register people to get some of these people that have this mindset out of office, because that's what it's going to take. That's what it's going to take to make significant changes here in the state of Texas, is to get people like that out of office. And he's I read an article this week in the Texas Tribune that said that he plans to invest $29 million of his campaign money behind these candidates that he's supporting in his push for school vouchers. So, he's still trying to push that school voucher system. So we have to be prepared. We have to organize, and we have to get people out to vote. And that's what we're going to do this election cycle. And something that let me go to the Bell County Clerk's website. And there's a new law that passed this session, this last legislative session, where campaign finance reports have to be online. They have to be filed online now. The state of Texas already does this. A lot of states, a lot of cities, etc., they already do this, but the Bell County has not. And there's so many things that we could do that's proactive for transparency, for ease of public access, and we just don't do it. So it's like I said, it's another one of those circumstances where who you have in office matters. Does transparency matter? It should. We have all these laws, ethics, campaign finance report, or campaign finance laws to protect the public, so you can see what's going on in your government. And so anyways, it's a good thing now that we have these easily, readily available online. And you can now go to their website. If you go to the Bell County Clerk's office, on the left-hand side, there's a bunch of tabs. And towards the bottom, you'll see one that says TEC Campaign Finance Reports. And you click on that and go to it. Well, it'll take you right there. And you can see all the candidates that have filed to date. I believe the deadline to file is the 16th of January. And then that reporting period is from July 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023. So every 6 months, those will go there. But you can click on these and see what money is going where. The ones that are interesting for me are the candidates that are not running for re-election and that they are retiring. like Judge Reed, Justice of the Peace for Precinct 3, Place 1. His is really simple. What he filed, he didn't raise any money. He didn't spend any money. So that's an easy one, and he's retiring. Then the next one that is retiring, Eddie Lang, sheriff for Bell County for many years. I used to know. I first met Eddie whenever I was a reserve deputy constable. He was the justice of the peace for Temple, and that's when I first met him. Then he went up to county commissioner after that, and then sheriff. So on Eddie Lang, and he's retiring, so it's going to be an open seat. So for Sheriff Lang, said he had $12,275 in expenditures. A majority of that went to the Bell County Sheriff's Foundation, and that's a 501c3 that they have a board. I believe he sits on that board. And then we have $1,000 that he donated from his campaign funds to Roseanne Fisher. She's running for Justice of the Peace in Precinct 3. Then he gave $1,000 to Russell Snyder, County Commissioner for Precinct 1, that is running. So he emptied out his campaign funds, and majority of that went to his nonprofit. Then we got Henry Garza, who is retiring as well. And now just keep in mind this, you can look at this, that they're all online. He's retiring as well. And from what I could see on his campaign finance reports, he had about $15,000 that he had raised roughly. And of that, he still has $13,000 cash on hand. I would assume he's going to donate that money to campaigns or something like that. But he gave, from his political contributions, he gave $900 to the Children's Advocacy Center, and then $500 to Stephanie Newell for DA, and then $500 to Debbie Garrett for judge. And so, I looked into what you could do with I think it can sit in your campaign account for out to 7 years, but within that 7 years, if you don't do something with it, then I think it goes to supposed to go to the state Democratic or whatever party you're affiliated with, it would go to them. So, and then the last one, Precinct 2 Constable, Raleigh Carrera, he's retiring, and he's another one. Didn't raise any money and didn't spend any money. So, yeah, you could go there. Like I said, there should be more on there. And there will be more on there as the 16th goes, because all candidates have to do it. All candidates have to file. And then all office holders have to file. So you will be able to go there for the first time ever and to be able to look at who's running, how much money they're spending, and who's funding their campaigns. So that's definitely a win for transparency in government. And I mean, that's one of those things that's, state legislature, you got this one right. That's a good law. I like that one because our county clerk wasn't doing that when you could very easily. But anyways, we have a lot to do this year. There's going to be a lot of things that you'll be hearing about in the not so distant future. I definitely want to get some of these candidates and be able to present them here to you. And I also saw something today in the paper. It was an independent candidate. The guy lives in Copper's Cove, and he's running against August Pfluger. Most of Killeen is now in his district, gerrymandered again, Killeen, because we're a Democratic voting bloc, so they like to gerrymander Killeen out of things. But we're in Congressional District 11, and so at least I have someone to vote for that's not a Republican. There's no Democrat that's running against August Pfluger, so I guess the independent is better than voting for an arm. So, anyways, stay warm, stay safe, and we will talk to you next week.